Alright guys, so you have already done your practice stitches on a piece of felt and you've already loaded them to the Google Classroom. So now it's time to start your actual mask. I'm going to give you guys one of these and one of these. Most of you are going to fit into this teenage and woman category. So you're going to cut out along that line all the way around. So I have that over here. I'm going to take my little piece of fabric and I'm going to fold it in half. Put my template in the middle. And I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to trace around it. However, I'm not going to trace right up to the edge. I forgot, before you trace it, you need to pin the pattern down just so it doesn't move around. So all of you should have a couple pins. You can just use two to pin it on there. And that just keeps it from moving with you. So I'm going to not trace right on the line. Instead I'm going to come out about 1/4 of an inch. It doesn't have to be exact. I'm going to trace around on 3 of the sides. So I'm going to give myself 1/4 of an inch. It's called a seam allowance. So on the upper part, the nose part, and the bottom, I drew a line 1/4 of an inch out. Now on the ear side, I want to go all the way out to 1 inch. So I'm going to come over here. Do that. And now I'm going to cut it out. Alright, I have it cut out now. So now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to trace right on the pattern, coming up this way. So if you notice, I kind of went down below the pattern. Let me see if I can hold that up there. And that's okay. You kind of want that. I'm going to do on this side as well. And on this side. Alright, so now I'm going to thread my needle and I'm going to sew, forgot to do this side. I'm going to sew along this side right here, right on that line. So I'm going to go ahead and fold my pattern over so I can see that line, and I will be back when I have my needle threaded to show you. Alright, so I have my needle threaded and I double looped it just like before, so my knot is down here and it's loose up here. And I just went ahead and put it through close to the edge. So now you're going to do your basic running stitch all along that line. Or if you feel like your running stitch isn't strong enough, you can do a back stitch, which is like kind of how we started the books. However, when you're doing your running stitch, I don't want you to go stitch and then 1 whole inch later do another stitch. I want you to make it like pretty close and try to stick on that line as best as you can. So don't pull it so that it cinches, but you do want to pull it all the way through so it's tight. I think I'm going to do a back stitch on mine. So I don't have a line on the back, so I'm just trying to imagine where it would be, and then I check before I pull it all the way through to make sure that I'm still on the line. For the amount of thread that you're going to need, you're going to want about double the length of what you're going to sew. Or if you're doing a back stitch, you want to do about triple. And we can always get more thread. So if you look on here, my stitches are pretty even. So I have a stitch and then I have about the same stitch length in between where it's no stitch, stitch, stitch length, stitch, stitch length, and they're all about the same. I'm going to just do this all the way up to the top. Alright, when you get to the end, you can, so you see the end, I have it loose on the other side. You can pull your pins out, put them back in your foam so you don't lose them. Give your fabric a little tug just to make sure you don't have anything cinched. And then this is actually the inside, so we're going to go ahead and open it up. And you can see how well your stitches are holding. If there's any gaps going through there, then you're going to want to go back and do a back stitch. And I'm actually going to go ahead and just go back and do a back stitch just because I think it's a little bit stronger. So if you choose to do that, which I really think you should, go all the way through, and then just like we did with the books, you're going to go back in and let's see if I can get the camera to focus on this. Okay, you're going to go back to the previous stitch and go through and do that all the way back, so your knot's going to be in the same spot, the same place as before, just on the other side. And what that looks like, I suppose I should have used a darker piece of thread, huh? So you guys could see better. I'm going to do a couple so you can see what it looks like. So you see it's just a solid line. So instead of having gaps, it's just a solid line of the thread. And then when I open it up, it's a lot more secure than down here. Okay, so I'm going to do that, and I will unpause when I get back. Okay, so I have my back stitch done. You can see on both sides it goes all the way straight without any interruptions. So now you have two choices to finish it off. I personally think that the method like we used before, where you go underneath of the stitch and then go through the loop that you made to create that knot, is the best. But if you want to do a little different and you have enough thread, you can take your strings, and because of the way that we did the back stitch, we could tie into the strings before. Now you won't always be able to do this method, but right here it can. I think that the single stitch or the single knot tied through the previous stitch will be just fine. But if you're worried about it, go ahead and do that as well. And now I don't want to cut the string all the way down to the knot, but I do want to cut it a little tiny little bit shorter so that when I open it up, I don't see the string. So now I have my mask, it's stitched together. We will take an iron and we will press this flat, press it open like this, or you just make sure it stays on one side. Don't make sure that it's not all wiggly wobbly. Okay, so now you have this funky shape here. I want you to, using your sketch, using your design, draw on here what you want. So I saw some people have like a paint drip pattern, so you would just take your pencil and kind of eyeball them in. Some people had like cow print, same thing. If you have tie-dye, obviously you're not going to draw that in. We'll just go ahead and get the dye out and we'll start dyeing it. So get working on this part, and once you are all done with that, you'll watch the next video to show you how to put it together with the inside layer and how to make the seams nice and pretty. Let me know if you need any help.